Hey, hey, Omar Chicago Cycling Network. And my God, look who we have in the house, guys. This is going to be amazing. I mean, what better way to launch the year off with having like basically one of our best local legends. I mean, look at it. He's introduced himself. We already know his name and all the good stuff about him. But today we're going to dive deep into his psyche, try to understand the face, the man, the mission, everything. It's going to happen today, right here, guys. Trust me, it's going to be fantastic. It's going to be great. I wish everybody have a fantastic year for biking and Chicago to be like an awesome year, guys. We're waiting for spring to come around. So please make sure you're doing your workout on indoor trainer. Get your Zwift, your Roof, whatever you do, because I'm telling you, guys are getting faster because you're putting in the work. And if you race, don't complain when non-racer put the work in and they start beating your butt. Okay, so please put the work in. This is the time. Don't be a couch potato. All right. Anyway, guys, thanks again. It's gonna be good. Again, Chicago Cycling Area is all about just highlighting amazing people in the city, people who make Chicago work, make it run. And this is what we're all about. We're gonna highlight people, talk about their experiences, why they're important to the sport, and how they play an integral role in just making Chicago just a fantastic, fantastic place to be. And I mean, we have we have Mr. International right here. Okay, last time was Lanyon was like Mr. 606, but he's Mr. International. Okay, we have seen him all over on all different people's YouTube channel, all sort of insanity. But today he's here, guys, and I really appreciate it for being here and just to come and support. He's the guy. He's the man. We're gonna get started. So please introduce yourself. Unless again we know who he is, but let's introduce yourself. Just state it in for the records.
I can't start without saying, yo, welcome back to the channel. So my name is Patrick Lino. I am a content creator, marketing influencer, and I am locally a part of XXX Athletico. And I'm super happy to be here.
Hey, thanks, man. Good stuff. Yeah, so you're a Chicago boy, no?
So currently, yes, my wife and I, we live in Chicago, but I am originally from the suburbs, particularly Lombard, out in the western suburbs. And I want to briefly discuss what Boomaye means, because
yes,
I've heard people say Boomai or
presenting
Boomaye. So what the heck? What is Boomaye? So if you are at least Omar and myself's age, you probably know of Muhammad Ali and his boxing career. So out in Africa, I believe it was the Rumble in the Jungle. Someone will correct us.
That's right. That's it.
So the locals were screaming, Ali Boomaye, Ali Boomaye. And so it kind of means like kill him, but not like in the actual way. They just meant to pulverize his opponent. And so that Ali Boomaye kind of always stuck with me. But when it came time to create my Instagram handle, I didn't really know what I was going to call myself. But my younger sister, she always calls me Patty. Fun fact, I'm a Patrick. I was supposed to be a Patricia because my parents only wanted two children. They wanted a boy and a girl. So my older brother was the boy. I was supposed to be the girl, which sounds strange. And so they're like, oh, it's another boy. We wanted him to be a Patricia. We'll just call him Patrick instead. And then my youngest now, she's Patricia. So she called me Patty. And so when I was creating my Instagram handle, I was like, what am I going to call myself? Patty Boomaye. So that just kind of stuck with me for the last 5 years of making content.
Gotcha. So are you a fan of the Game and 2 Chainz? Because they made a rap song about Boomaye.
They did. And for the longest time, if you were to Google on the SEO and you just type in Boomaye, that song would come up. So I'm hoping one day I'll surpass the song where it'll be
Patrick Lino.
It'll be my brand instead of 2 Chainz.
I hear. Yeah, I think the word Boomaye is from the language, I think, Lingala. I think that's the origin of the language. And you said before, yeah, it means kill him, but really means, triumph, be spirited, get it done. So sometimes when I do my, my sprints and stuff, I always chant in my mind. You didn't notice? I chant Boomaye in my mind, or I chant Hibombe. That's my spirit chant. So that's crazy. So basically, you said you're supposed to be Patricia. So basically, you're a guy that was caught in a woman's body, and then you were born. If that makes sense, it's a dad joke, right? It's a dad joke. Eventually, you guys will get the joke because he was in his mom, so he was a guy trapped in a woman's body, then he was born. That's my only bad joke for the day, guys. I'm sorry. That is it. That is it.
Like and subscribe.
Like, but now we know. So no, I understand. Well, I kind of knew a little bit of the remnants, but now we truly we know. So, how did you get into cycling, please? And at what point decide, okay, I'm into cycling, and I'm gonna start a YouTube channel. Like, what was the inspiration there? We want to know.
So being a middle child, which for those who watch and listen to this, if you are a middle child out there, you'll probably kind of understand the psyche of what it's like, where you're pretty much left to your own devices as a child. Parents would focus on the oldest because he's the oldest, and then my youngest sister, she was the baby, so she was always spoiled. So I've always been left to just kind of do my own things, and I've always liked tinkering with stuff. My dad was really good at like fixing stuff around the house. He liked to build stuff too. And so I've always just been interested in just different sports, different passions, like film, music, all these things. And so for cycling, so I have like 25 years of basketball experience.
Okay.
I didn't play in like college or anything, but I did play a lot of league basketball growing up. And I remember still clear as day, it was almost like 6 years ago to the day. I was playing one of our playoff games. At this point, we were winning like multiple championships like every year. And I had a Achilles rupture tear, full tear. And it was the night before my wife and we had this big vacation we were going to Abu Dhabi of all places.
Oh, wow. Nice.
And so I remember I was laying on the court. I wasn't in pain. I was just in shock of, oh my goodness, I'm supposed to be on a plane in 12 hours. And obviously we didn't go. So, I went to the hospital, I had an MRI, and they're like, yeah, it's a full tear.
No NBA.
No NBA. Yeah. So this was about 6 years ago. So doing the rehab, the doctor said, you'll make a full recovery, but until you do, you could either maybe consider swimming or maybe take up cycling. So I had like an old Trek Amanda rim brake bike that I probably would ride like 300 miles a year, like nothing crazy. Like 20 miles was a big deal for me back then. And everything lined up perfectly because this was during the pandemic. So, hopping on the bike, making this recovery, no motorists on the road at all. And I just immediately fell in love with cycling to the point where I was like, I haven't really picked up a basketball ever since.
Wow.
So being able to build bikes, I have all this freedom. I'm already kind of a solitude guy because I'm a middle child. Like, this is the perfect sport for me. And, I can kind of just test my own limits. I don't have to try to call 9 other people on the phone to organize a game of basketball. Like, this ended up being on so many different levels, the perfect sport for me.
Wow. Yeah. And if you guys have seen him post the pictures of him and his story, he has a picture of him in basketball shorts next to his bicycle. And I'm like, please stop doing that. Don't post a picture anymore. But it kind of makes sense. And I understand that you have a basketball background that led you into the sport. And again, they say you bike by yourself. You don't have to call up. I need 4 other people to come and play with me or whatever, 3 and 3 or 5 or whatever. So that's great. So when you started building, so you started biking because of, you injured and everything. And I guess of course, it's Chicago, so it's hard to find a pool, and then lake is probably too cold. Plus, black people don't swim. No, I'm kidding. I didn't say that. I'm Jamaican. I've been swimming since I was like 3. So, but there's all these stereotypes. Well, yeah, can you swim?
I cannot swim. I'm Caribbean and I can't swim.
I didn't make up the rules. Okay, he said.
I can run, but I can't swim.
And there's Lake Michigan right there. Yeah, since I was like 3, I mean, I got tossed the water. Hey, swim out, and the guys were watching, and since then I could swim.
That's what my dad. That was his tactic. Just throw you in there,
and then you get out, and then that's it. So this was right about pandemic. But at what point did you say, okay, let me start building bikes, and then from building bikes into reviewing bikes? How did that transition?
So I had my old bike, and truth be told, there really wasn't anything wrong with it. It probably was maybe one size too big, because that's normally what the local sell shops, at least back then, would do. And, you'd be out and about, you'd meet people who had really nice bikes. And even if I didn't necessarily feel like I needed a new bike, it's just the concept of trying something new. So at the time, I knew I couldn't afford like a fully brand new bike. And I just would do a lot of searches on Google and look on YouTube, and I would see like, oh, people, or there's brands at least that sell frame set only options. So I don't even know how I got the weird harebrained idea to think that I could build a bike. I just thought, you know what? I'm gonna buy a frame set. So I had my original Trek Amanda at that time, and I bought a set of wheels from this brand online called Yolio. They're a Chinese brand. I bought a set of their wheels, and I really liked the wheels. And at this point, in addition to my day profession, which I haven't done in a couple of years, which is cybersecurity, I also have other side businesses where I do wedding photography. I've done multimedia. I've done record producing and engineering.
Oh wow!
I've recorded songs myself, where I've had my songs that I've recorded myself on the radio. I've done all of this.
Who knew this? Who knew this? What? That's awesome.
I've done all this multimedia stuff to where I thought when I purchased these wheels, I'm like, I'm going to make a video on it just because, I don't know, it's kind of cool. And that video really took off. And so I ended up going back to that same brand, Yolio, for the frame set. They didn't know who I was. I didn't get any discount. And I basically took that same frame, took all the parts off, took the wheels, and I built that bike. And I made a video on that as well. When, during the pandemic, everyone's at home. So that video also took off. And that was the start of not right away, but that was at least the start of maybe brands kind of realizing that I'm another player in this space. And it still took another 15 months before I start to actually get these partnerships. But those couple of videos, the wheels and building the bike, just took off right away.
Oh, so which bike was this?
This was the Yolio R12. It was a rim brake bike. And it was probably too small. And I still got dropped in Elizabeth.
What's too small? What's that?
The frame was too small.
So you what do you ride now?
I ride like a 56 with
And they gave you a 54 if it was too small?
It was a 56, but it was just on the shorter side of a 56. It was probably more like an American 54, but I didn't really understand geometry too much at the time. So
yeah, we most times never understand these things until you start learning and getting more in the sport and learning from getting all these unsolicited advice as we do it.
Yeah.
And sometimes men get mansplained and all these different things if that works. But I mean, it's a good learning experience, right?
Yeah.
So did you get dropped in Elizabeth? Did you get dropped in Elizabeth?
The very first up that 17%.
Oh no, that's everybody get dropped on that one. If you're not light and have a couple of years of experience on your legs, it's going to be a pretty tough one for you. So,
yeah.
So that was it. So you start building bikes. So then when you start building bikes, though, were you reaching out to brands or were brands reaching out to you?
So I'm going to do my best to keep my ego in check. I can probably count on one hand the actual initiations I've done for brands. For the most part, I would say 95% of the time, it's them reaching out to me. And so, yeah, especially earlier on, I wasn't reaching out to really any brands. I might have reached out to maybe one or two and they told me to kick rocks. And I wasn't really upset or jealous. I just figured I'd probably just have more work to do. So I just, I still was investing my own money for the first year and a half making videos because these are things I was going to buy anyway. I needed, new apparel. I needed winter clothing. I needed, tires, things like that. And I would just document them and put them online. And so it was about a year and a half in of making videos where I had people who were kind of paying attention to what I was doing because I was buying their products and reviewing them. So from a brand's perspective in the marketing department, they're kind of shaking their heads like, who is this person who paid for this product full price, making a video and it's taking off? Normally, these are the people who are getting products for free, making content to help us out. So they're like, we're getting all this free advertisement from this guy who's a customer. We should kind of do right by him and see if we can work together.
Oh,
so that's when WinSpace came around. And then once WinSpace came, it was to the races.
Wow.
Yeah.
So basically you had to put the work in do a little investment.
Yeah.
But this wasn't something you actually planned to do. You were just doing it out of just love and learning experience.
It was very, very organic. I didn't go into it with any sort of business sense. All I had was just my kind of art vision with it, which it doesn't require a lot of art or media. I just knew that I wanted to document these
Well,
things.
I mean, I think it's a lot of art too, because when you make jokes like, hey, I'll take a grandmother to Applebee's or whatever, I'm like, that's funny, and people can connect to the jokes, and that's probably the little anecdotes and stuff. I think it's a good way to segue into like, hey guys, I'm a real person. Let's take it easy, let's have fun. So I think that possibly play a role in why you're being so successful.
Yeah, and I'll tell the audience that Omar probably told me this maybe 3 or 4 years ago. Just a gentle reminder of, hey, as you continue to grow, be mindful of how you present yourself with these jokes, because one day you're gonna maybe not be full corporate, but at the very least, hey, there's gonna be a lot of eyes on you. So if you see me kind of clean up my act over the last couple of years, it's because what Omar said is finally happening.
Yeah, and he's here. So yeah, so I mean, I've seen you go from 100 subscribers to 17K, right? What does it take? I mean, what is there a formula, or just putting the work in? Like, how do you achieve? I mean, this. I mean, you talk about reviewing stuff and everything, but how does it take to get there? For people who want to get in channels and start your one, what does it take?
So as you mentioned about consistency, you're Mr. Consistent yourself on the bike. Consistency is so important. I mean, even just general life wisdom. Sometimes it's hard to look at ourselves in the mirror to say like we are probably our own hurdles to kind of getting the things that we want. And so, even same thing with life. If someone has a question of maybe things that aren't going their way, you can usually ask them, okay, well, how consistently are you doing this to get on that, to get to where you want? And you could tell pretty much right away that they're probably not putting in the work, and that's fine. Life gets in the way, but YouTube is a game of consistency, and you don't necessarily have to spend a lot of money to do it. But there are different metrics and just different kind of sort of social criteria that's required. So, if you look at some of the biggest channels on YouTube across all different industries, you can kind of see a trend of why they're popular. So one of them could be maybe you just have really high level production, where you're spending tens of thousands of dollars on equipment. That's one way to get you there. Another way is you're really good at writing. You're a really good journalist. That's another way. And if you don't have those two things, then the other things you can do that anyone can do, regardless of your budget, is you either have to be entertaining or you have to be informative. There's plenty of content creators on YouTube where they're just filming all their content with a mobile device.
Yeah,
but the information is good, and people don't care about them the way that we, the creators, think we do. They just want to make sure the information is either informative or entertaining. So when I'm doing these products, especially for myself, because I'm in a sport that, at times can be viewed as not the cheapest entry to get into. And I'm not an expert in any really part of cycling, so to speak. I'm not some sort of engineer where I can talk about engineering aspects of cycling. I don't own, or I haven't worked in a bike shop. So I don't have industry experience when it comes to like selling bikes. I'm not a high level crit racer, so I can't really go into too much details of the nuances of how these wheels feel when you're going.
But I think you're high level at Cat 5 though, because
shout out to Cat. The goal for 2026, ladies and gentlemen, is to maybe not finish mid pack in a Cat 5, which I think that's I think I'll be okay. I'll be okay. Yeah. So I have to basically create value for myself in ways that the average everyday cyclist can speak to. So that's being myself, just saying, hey, look, I'm not going to give you the super nuanced technical things. You just want to know whether or not it's stiff, it's fast, a bike that is, and whether or not it's going to kill me.
Gotcha.
And make sure I have fun doing it.
Because that's what I was about to ask you too. Like, when you get these products to review, whether it's a bike or wheels or whatever, like, do you have a metrics that you use that you can tell people reviewing the channel, these are my metrics. I'm being objective, I'm being subjective. What's your process like?
So the good thing now is, especially for like my particular niche or space I'm in, particularly we'll say wheels coming out of the Far East, mostly coming from China. Now in 2026, most of these products are really good now. So, the gap between good and bad is pretty, well, I guess it's large, but most of the products are really good. So if anything, I can normally tell when a product is not so good. But I don't have any like specific metrics. Essentially, I make sure to kind of do my testing loops, whether it's, I'm on the lakefront, kind of doing some efforts, or if I'm going north, maybe towards like North Shore, Baha'i, Fort Sheridan. And I'm on these roads so often where I can kind of tell how they're going to perform. And the main thing I really am looking for, particularly with like these wheels, is I want to see how they feel dynamically on rough roads, which Chicago in the wintertime is pretty much known for. So that's how I can tell whether or not a wheel is going to be stiff enough. I can tell if there's going to be any sort of flex. And then when I'm either out of the saddle or doing sprints, you can tell pretty much right away, where even if you don't know specifically what's happening, like scientifically with the products, you'll know if it's a noodle or not.
Got you.
Yeah.
And I guess is the same metrics for frames?
So frames are a little bit more tricky, I would say. But when I'm accepting products, I'm already doing my due diligence and research with the brand, where I'm trying to focus only on products that can pretty much sell themselves.
Gotcha.
So with frames, stiffness is important. That's something you can definitely feel, even if you aren't the strongest sprinter. I'm looking for how it feels out of the saddle, if it's responsive, and if there's any sort of crosswind instability. Being in Chicago, there's constant wind all the time. And those are really the main things people who resonate with my channel are looking for. They don't need it to necessarily feel like the fastest bike ever. They just want to make sure it's stable and that it's plenty stiff.
Gotcha. That's good information, because I just get on a bike and I most times will ask Patrick questions about different things, and then I'll do the opposite of whatever he says. Or because again, we always joke about I take the scientific approach to things. So I sometimes listen and then I do, but again, I have to make mistakes sometimes to learn a little bit. So sometimes, again, it's not that I don't listen to what you're saying, but making mistakes is a good way to learn.
Yeah.
So coming for this year, is there like a bike out there that you love to build to understand the dynamics of how things are put together for that particular brand? Do you have anything? If you don't, it's fine, but is there anything out there?
Truthfully, no. And it's an interesting question to ask, because, 5 years ago, well, maybe not even 5 years ago, we'll say 3 or 4 years ago, you have your ebbs and flows, your ups and downs of maybe how, my YouTube channel is going, where you have your good days, and then the other days you feel like, man, things aren't really moving the way that I would want them to move. And then one day just happens where you kind of look up and stop and realize I've been able to pretty much do all the things I wanted to do 3 years ago. I'm at that point now. So with like the Tarmac or the Specialized Tarmac SL8 or even the SO7 being very popular frames, especially here in Chicago, because they have 2 flagship shops. That was always one of my like halo bikes, were on my kind of virtual mental vision board. And then, 2 years ago, I was able to actually buy one. I didn't work with Specialized. I bought one and I was able to review it. And I didn't think about it at the time that like, oh, this is kind of the pinnacle of bikes. Where do I go from here? So that introduced a new problem. Like, okay, well, you're kind of at the top by a lot of people's metrics on this bike. What else? Where do you go from here? So there are new bikes that come in, and I do have some partners that kind of give me a little bit of access to like newer bikes, but maybe like the not the new factor that's super ugly, but just like the regular. I mean, bro, let's what are we doing?
It is what it is, but if it's functional, it's functional. Right? My wife thinks I'm ugly, but I'm functional. So it works.
I'm trying my best to not make any inappropriate jokes, so we'll keep it going. But shout out to all of our dealers in Chicago within the network that sell factor bikes. I hope they're able to sell a lot of that bike. It's not for me if I have to spend my own money, but their standard factor Ostro Vam, that's a nice looking bike.
Yeah.
Maybe the current Trek Madone. I think you've had people on the show that have that bike.
Yeah.
And that's probably it. Chinese branded bikes are getting really, really good. And I hope we can continue to raise awareness in Chicago for these brands, because despite the fact of me doing this for 5 years, there's still only really 1 or 2 brands of Chinese brands that people in Chicago are comfortable with.
That would be Winspace and Tabello?
Yeah, those are the only 2. That's it. And at this point, I think I've reviewed probably like 35 bikes across different brands, and probably like 50 sets of wheels. It's a
Wow,
lot.
that's a lot.
It's a lot.
In 5 years, that's a lot.
It's a lot. Yeah, it can
So,
be
so
overwhelming.
in all those different, maybe not, but in all those different combination, what would be like your, if you remember, what to be your ideal wheel set for that perfect frame?
Ooh, good question. Okay, I gotta.
I mean, if you don't have it, if you
Yeah.
don't talk about it, that's fine. But is this something I want to? Because
Yeah.
maybe I'll get an idea. Maybe other people can. Hey, this is what Patrick says. Let me go try it. Let me
Yeah.
go try it out.
Let me see who pays me the most.
Yeah.
No. So I do have some favorite sets of wheels. So if you are someone that only wants to stick with Western brands, I do really like the current NV SCS 4.5s. They're like 50 to like 55 millimeters deep. They feel like absolutely bulletproof. They're pricey, but they feel really bulletproof. They have steel spokes. They're not using carbon. They're a pretty decent weight for what you get. The only downside beyond the price is that they're hookless. But how they actually feel, they feel bomb-proof. And even if you are someone that's kind of a brand snob or you really want that brand cachet, like I understand it, but like they're really good wheels. But I don't have the budget for them myself, and they're hookless, so they're basically kind of out. But as far as like from the Far East brands, I really like the number 6 wheels. You've seen them if you follow my Instagram. Those have been like I'm using my air quotes, my race wheels. They do a good job. They come in like a 50 millimeter front and then a 58 millimeter depth in the rear wheel. Nice. Those have been like my main wheels. And then the other alternatives that are really good is from Elite Wheels. They always have discounts, which we can talk about that later.
Yeah, we'll put it down below.
So I'll say, so at the pinnacle of budget, Envy is number 1 in terms of price. If you have $2,500 that's burning in your pocket, check out the Envies. And then from there, the number 6, then from there, the Elite Wheels, which are probably some of the most selling wheels that I offer, so to speak. And then from there, you have the Yolios, which full circle moment, that's the same brand
that you started
off with. So.
Wow. And then for frame, you would go with the Tavello versus the Windspace versus the Specialized versus that one versus the other one.
So from the Western brands, my favorite bike or frame was the Giant Propel.
Yes, I remember that one.
Yeah, and again, that was a bike that I purchased with my own money, full price. I bought it at the pony shop. They took care of me. The bike is really stiff. It's exceptionally responsive, and I was really surprised how well it was on punchy climbs. So when we went out to Madison a couple of years ago, which we can get into a little bit, I liked the way it felt out of the saddle. It's probably too stiff for most people who are looking for comfort, but I really like the way that bike felt. And I'll probably end up purchasing another one circle at some point. I'll come back to it.
They have a new one coming out. It's the same.
They've been the style they have now. It's been out for at least 3 or 4 years, so it's a little longer than 2. They need to update it soon, but I haven't heard anything. They did recently move their headquarters to Colorado, USA, because they've kind of been in some hot water.
Oh, didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
all right. So I hear you use Eastern brands and Western brands, right? Are you
yeah.
So, but in essence, again, this is not my realm, right? But aren't most of these frames made in the East and then branded in the West? So I'm just honest because I was in this conversation with people like, oh, don't buy that brand because it's a Chinese brand or it's this brand. But aren't almost everything from China, even babies, they're from China, right? so you just got that. It's okay. Sorry, I didn't say no more of that joke, but that's what word just came out. But yeah, help us to if you can, to understand the psychology, because people are like, don't get this a Chinese brand, but I'm like, wait a minute, is the Specialized frames made in China? Isn't Giant made in China? Isn't Trek made in China and assembled in Wisconsin or whatever? So help us to understand it, because I'm trying to get out of the mindset.
Sure. Yeah. So you have a couple of different places. So you have so Taiwan is a popular place, but most of everything is coming from China. Particularly, there's a coastal city called Xiamen, China, which is the carbon capital of the world. That's where the actual carbon fiber material is made. Now, you'll have brands where they'll say it's made in Taiwan, but that's because some of the laws and regulations are different than from China. which I want to say it kind of helps them kind of avoid just some of the tax implications.
Gotcha.
Not to mention the stigma of it saying made in China. You know, people identify certain countries with quality. And so Taiwan is a higher tier, at least up until, you know, recently, than say coming from China. So what you have is in China, you have all these different factories and manufacturers where they may not necessarily be good at making their own brands, but they have the manpower and the resources to create bikes and frames and wheels, etc., for other brands. You know, so if you're Omar, you say, hey, I want to create a bike brand, you come up with the AutoCAD drawings. They'll have their in-house engineers make sure everything's safe and sound with the frame itself. And then it'll go into production. And then you basically have these linemen in these warehouses, or excuse me, factories, making these products by hand in the mold. Now, these people, sometimes, at least at the lower level of these production, these are people who maybe aren't like the most skilled. They have instructions in front of them where all their job will be is, okay, hey, your job today is to just put together the carbon fork. So here are your 16 different pieces of carbon fiber. We need you to put it into the mold in this particular, you know, orientation for a size 56. Here's a size 52 or 54. Do the same with the smaller pieces. Put it together inside of the mold. And then from there, you know, the resin, and then it, you know, it gets heat treated so that it becomes, you know, actual, you know, hard and stable. But that's pretty much what these brands are doing. Now, when you're specialized, you can have your own sort of factory within a factory, meaning,
gotcha.
you know, you need to have a certain level of security clearance to even get within that part of the factory. And they have their own in-house specialized employees to keep eyes on everything, because the last thing they want is to have like bootleg or counterfeit frames getting out. But for everyone else, they're basically just saying, hey, you know, we're XYZ brand and we want to sell bikes. And then the factories will say, okay, well, we already have these designs in our sort of virtual catalog. You just pick one of the bikes you want.
Oh, just put your name on it
and put your name on it.
And here we go.
Yeah. So the long answer is yes, most of this stuff is coming from the Far East. Pretty much all of it is. It's not until you start to get into like aluminum and maybe some titanium bikes where maybe it might be, you know, done in the UK, Italy, or the United States. But for the most part, everything is coming from China.
Wow. So next up, we're gonna get some bikes from Wakanda, made from vibranium. That's the Wakanda forever.
Boomaye #1.
That's right. Maybe that's gonna be your.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody's in like, you know, Project 1, Factor 1, Factor 2. So maybe you'll do the next Boomaye 1. So the next bike. So yeah, because this how this kind of people are like scared to buy like a Chinese brand name, and they always drop in, well, there's this quality control and all these different things, but I've yet to see anybody I know on a Chinese bike or whatever we want to call it that fell apart when they crash. And I've seen videos that I think that it was a Norcal that posted a video of the guy in Specialized that split in two recently. That the bike went from like that to like no because it split right in half. I've seen the butts. I mean the ISOFlow pops. I've seen many different things. So you know, to each his own. If you're not gonna do anything crazy on the bike and I mean the rule is don't crash. I mean so if you don't crash, you're probably going to break your bike or have your rim fall apart on you when you're biking it and stuff and anything stupid. But we need to like stop being afraid and get caught up in this marketing stunt. That's what I think. Because I've ridden, before I get all my brand name bike, I was riding the bike with no name on them, and they would perform just as well as the bike with a big name on them. And I was okay with them. I mean, nobody, Pyotex, I mean, it's a good brand. I mean, finally, after years of working really hard, I was able to afford more brand name bikes. But before, all my bikes didn't have names on them. It's like, what name is that? I had an S-Twerks. I made X-Twerks, right? S-Twerks. I couldn't afford a Madone, so my bike says Mad 1. But it looks just like, and it performs fantastic too. So, yeah. So now that we get that cleared up. So any for 2026, any new projects you have coming up, or anything we're going to be releasing? So just keep on doing what you're doing.
Good question. Yeah. So I do have some trips planned where now I'm kind of slowly, before I was kind of knocking on the door of the industry. And now I've created enough value, which I hate to put it that way because it sounds like it's just a kind of a transactional thing, but just my experience now finally lends itself to be able to make a contribution within the actual industry. So I'm hoping to make it out to a couple of trade shows this year.
Oh, nice.
I'm hoping I can make my way out to actually the Shanghai bike show Where I'll be sent out there to kind of get some content and just kind of see some of the factories out in China as well, and maybe even get to ride with some of the employees of some of these big brands. That's kind of the main goal right now. And yeah, I am working with some brands where for obvious reasons I can't say who they work for, but all I can say is the best way I can describe this is if you think about how large Toyota is or like Honda, they're maybe don't have the most stylish cars, but they are one of the largest volume of automobile sellers that everyone recognizes. And so, I've been very fortunate based on just how I kind of conduct myself, where I've been able to work with some of these brands and factories where you would be surprised who they manufacture for. It's surprising. And so, I've stumbled upon working with people who are, let's call them Mr. Toyota of the cycling industry, where I didn't even know how deep their family goes, where essentially there's only a handful of actual families who produce things and own these factories. And I actually learned literally yesterday, guys, before today, just one of the brands I'm working with, they're like one of the big three triads families of China. At least that's what I was told. So maybe who told me I could have been lying, but based on how he conducts himself, he's someone who works with a lot of different brands. He just can't tell me all of them, but I know a few of them. So the quality is really good. And one thing I want to say, just going back to the whole kind of Chinese brand concept. So I'm not this necessarily advocate of Chinese brands. I'm not here to disrupt American brands. I'm an advocate of people buying and doing whatever they want that inspires them to ride their bikes more.
Hear that guy? Please repeat.
So I'm an advocate of doing and buying whatever you need to that inspires you to ride and play with bikes more. That's all I do. I started with Chinese brands because when I started out, that was all I could afford. But my goal was never to sit here and tell people don't buy expensive bikes. I mean, I've had plenty of Western branded bikes on my channel. And to be quite frankly, when it comes to warranty, having local support, the brand cachet is important. I mean, it's why why you might buy one watch over another one. So the branding part is important. It can be part of your identity. So there's plenty of reasons why people would want to go with the Western brand. I'm just here to give as big of the picture as I can so that people have the options, so that they know that, if maybe you're a junior or someone new, 23, maybe you just don't have the budget out there and you shouldn't feel like you're destitute to buy
because there's options.
Because there's options. Yeah. There's plenty of options now. And it wasn't like that before the pandemic. And so, you're seeing brands having, troubles financially. We just recently heard Rafa are closing a lot of their clubhouses because the getting was good during the pandemic. And so now they're having to kind of peel back because they're not going to ever be able to turn over a profit the same way they did in the pandemic. So what's happening now is these new players, a lot of these Chinese brands and factories, they're getting smart. They're no longer treating their manufacturing as just a job. They're now saying, hey, let's take some of these cues we've learned from these people who we're making bikes for. Let's take some of that knowledge, save it, write it down, and let's start our own brand. And here we are today.
Wow. Yeah. Wow. Interesting. So, you review bikes. I've looked at your channel. I've seen people write paragraphs, sometimes saying cheers, Patrick, but then there's all these other 1 or 2% who just write paragraphs and just bashes you and say all kinds of different things. For somebody who has a channel and do this thing, how do you deal with stuff like this? Honestly, how do you do? How do you?
So I asked someone, again, going back to the middle child example. I wouldn't say I'm a full-on introvert, but I'm definitely a pro-solitude guy. So my friends and people in my circle make sure to remind me that, remember, part of the reason why you do this is for the community too. And being part of the community is really what has allowed me to get into the door and have these conversations with these brands, just as much as someone who on paper would have a bigger following than I do. So when I'm dealing with trolls, I always remind myself, no, number one, it's funny. And I'm I'm not going to let some stranger who I've never met mess up my day.
Right.
I'm also thinking that optically, the community is watching how I maneuver. And so I want to make sure I can maintain the reputation of, hey, I'm just the, I don't know, I'm just the neighborhood black dude who likes to build bikes. He's just a cool guy. And I want to always conduct myself that way. So I never let trolls get to me. Most of the time, it's very few like actual like trolls. More times than not, it's just someone who's looking for like a human connection. And that's their weird way of doing it. That's how I treat it. So because I want the community to kind of see how I maneuver, because I want to pay for the kindness with kindness. So when someone is trolling, especially on my YouTube channels, about, for example, something will come up like, I don't know why you're reviewing XYZ bike. It's from China. It's crap. That's a pretty common kind of trolling question I get. I've started to reply with, okay, well, please give us the reasons why you feel that way, because this will be helpful to my audience.
Fair enough.
They don't reply back, and that's how I know what the game is. It's just you're just here to be negative, And I'm just like, how could you be negative about a bike? And you didn't pay for it, and you still came to my channel and typed it, and so I'm gonna go on just a quick tangent here. I said I wasn't gonna mention this, but I'll try to keep it kind of lighthearted, So coming from these other sports, coming into cycling at my particular age, I've had to kind of learn some of the behavior and kind of psychology of the middle-aged man. And I'm not saying like, all of us men are toxic and we're a bunch of mansplainers, but there was a steep learning curve that I had to kind of learn in cycling versus how I dealt with other men in other sports. It's not that other sports don't have trolls. It's just weird, the emotional aspects people have personally in cycling. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So, it's not the cheapest sport on earth. So a lot of times people think that they can pay their way into cycling by, having expensive gear, clothing. A lot of us, have done very well for ourselves. So they can be very assertive in the office place. And then, they could basically get destroyed by some kid with $1,000 Chinese bike.
Rim brake too. One time rim brake.
And a rim brake. And it hurts the ego.
Mechanical shifted.
And it hurts the ego. So, anyone passionate in any sport is probably going to kind of, they have the propensity to have their ego hurt. I've just noticed it a lot more with cycling. And so especially with the trolling, so I'm just having to tell myself, like, I understand this is kind of what you signed up for. Don't take it personal, but try not to disrespect them either.
Yeah, no, fair enough. I mean, I think I've had my fair share of getting trolled in real life in that I don't race, okay? And I go to these rides and there's sprint points and here's Omar at 44 and his rim brake, mechanical shifting, and I'm winning sprints. But what people fail to understand is that Omar is putting in the work. Like, if you look at a lot of people mileage, you complain about me or other people. I mean, I'm doing 2 times the number of miles some people are doing by the time we get hit outdoors. So I'm putting in the work. And you guys don't see this. I'm sweating, I'm cramping, I got up early in the morning. Sometimes my wife don't feed me. No, I'm kidding. But the point is I put in the work, guys. So please, respect what people are doing and just be support. Let's just be supportive of each other, because that's what we're all here to do. Again, Chicago is an amazing place to bike in, but there's always people, as we're talking about, who can always be like trolls and Debbie Downers. So you put the work in, and as I said last time, just don't be a twat waffle. Very important. It's in the rule books. Check it. All right.
Hashtag no twat waffle.
No twat waffle. No twat waffle. So yeah, so it's good that we're really opening and talking about these different things, because it's a new, as I say, it's a new year. It's gonna be a new year. A lot of amazing things to come. And we just keep on supporting each other and as we progress. So the next round of questions we're gonna hit up now is like, so one, well, before we even touch that, and this is why I think it's very important for you, because one, you ride your bike, you review the product, and you tell people, I think from what I've seen so far, objectively, subjectively, this is what I think. And then people are gonna come and say, well, you're getting paid by all these brands and blah, blah. Where's my money? Give me some money, because we're friends. So if people are paying all this money, I need my share, because I've never seen it. But they always like saying that he's getting, I'm like, what? I know this guy. And that's not true, guys. You might get some stuff, but all the trolls out there, you're saying all these things, it's not true. You don't drive a Lamborghini or a Ferrari, all these different things. So I think what he's saying is actually, again, I mean, I've ridden on him with some of these rides when you go test his bikes, and it is not what you guys are talking about. So that's It's not. Anyway, so do you train? And when you train, are you more indoor, outdoor guy? And do you enjoy this training?
So I do train. I started doing a little bit of structured training last year, and I have a really good coach. Shout out to I call him TBK Taco Burrito King, but it's actually the kid from Belgium. You guys know who he is. I'll leave it at that. But yeah, I started doing structure last year, and I really enjoyed it. In fact, I've been able to advance my fitness a little bit quicker on less hours a week, just by being a little bit more structured. Now, I still put in the same amount of time, just because I enjoy being on my bike, and I do have the circumstances currently to be on the bike. But yeah, so like for like the zone 2 rides, being indoors, particularly on Zwift, is super efficient, especially this time of year in January. When it comes times to do the higher intensity stuff, not necessarily sprints, but when you're doing, when you are above like VO2 zone 5 stuff, it's way easier to do it outdoors. The hard part is even when you get out of the city, if you're trying to do, there are probably some places you can probably do like 5 minutes uninterrupted if you can get the light. But you have to kind of get creative. And so like, I appreciate people who live out in either like California or other places where there's sustained climbs, because you can get the watts down without having to go 30 miles an hour, basically, and you kind of introduce a bunch of other problems. So zone 2 rides, I prefer indoors on Zwift. And then for all the higher intensity stuff, I like to do it outdoors, particularly in maybe some of the group rides or any sort of kind of practice events going on.
So he's giving her all the secret, guys. So if you want to beat him in Cat 5, whatever he's doing on Zwift, you follow him. Stalk his Strava, because he's on Strava, and you can just repeat what he's doing, and then you're probably beating him. Okay.
and to add to that, what I really had to learn, and I'm not making an excuse for myself, but my genetics and self lends itself to just kind of short, fast, powerful duration. So like, I play a lot of basketball. I also did track and field. So I was a high jumper.
Well, your Nicole should be talking, having stories.
So I mean, just like very, very low level stuff. But if I were to have taken it seriously, I would have been a high jumper. So like, I'm 6 foot, like pretty much right there. But I mean, I've been able to dunk basketball in my prime, like just a regular thing without much training. So. But even in high school, running the mile or running, like, we used to have these training sessions, like the 12-minute running sessions. I never had a good endurance base. Like, I would struggle so much with long distance. And so with cycling, being that it's a big endurance sport, and like, I'm okay. Like, I train enough to be able to, my thing is, I train enough to be able to do a 100-mile solo ride any time of the year. If I want to just go tomorrow, I want to be fit enough to do that. And, be able to do it, sort of strategically. But I've always struggled with these endurance sports. And it's been very humbling where you see the guy, regardless of their age, whether they're 25 or 55, tell me they only have to do 6 to 7 hours a week. They're probably really good at, hitting the specific targets.
Or 65. Let's not
or 65.
About Dean, because Dean is here. So let's start. It's Dean.
Shout out to Dean. But, for me, I'm like, I have to, not only do I have to be really smart with my training, I have to put in a lot of hours just to be what I consider for myself, like, just average. Some guys can come in, do 6 to 7 hours a week and be miles ahead of me. And, part of it, a little bit is genetics, but my body just doesn't respond that way.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, genetics and people respond different because people have like base of in another sport. I mean, I think I do as well in cycling because I used to be a runner. And as a runner, I put the work in. And then by default, I'm Jamaican. So I'm all fast switch muscle. Like, for anybody who has sprinted against, they know I am this fast switch muscle. And that's my thing. And I enjoy it. So that's good. By the way, so as a person who's a runner, you said like 12 minutes run. That's not long distance, by the way. Like 12 minutes for me back in the days, that's almost 2.5 miles already.
Yeah.
That's ready.
Another thing, it was hard for me. I was struggling even with 12 miles. Like,
12 miles or 12 minutes?
12 minutes.
12 minutes, yeah.
And that's me playing basketball 4 to 5 times a week, just that endurance base for whatever reason. I don't know, maybe I should go to the doctor and have him checked, but I've always struggled with just any sustained effort, basically. Like anything fast twitch, like punchy, like even like out on the road on my bike, like punchy climbs, love it. If you ask me to sit at whatever threshold for like 45 minutes, struggle. 3 minutes is like my and again, these are like rookie numbers, but even 3 minutes is my max. I'm just like,
So that's why group rides are important. Because you can always go hide in the back somewhere.
Yeah, exactly.
Do your thing, go to the back, and then come back to the front and do your thing.
Exactly.
So it's like when you're doing some of these zone 2 rides or outdoors and stuff, what's your nutrition like?
Good question. So I am sort of a sponsored athlete. So I take in a lot of carbs. I've been kind of dialing it back a little bit for the zone 2 stuff, just because for how I particularly treat zone 2, if you are staying in your particular zone, then you don't necessarily need all of that extra nutrition. You just need for me, I'm a really salty sweater, even in the wintertime. I sweat a lot. Not that my sweater is salty. It probably is, but
and other things.
Hey, yo, cut that out. Cameraman, cut that out. So like, if I'm doing genuinely proper low zone 2, then, as long as I've had a good breakfast, I don't really need to take in anything. It's just more about the electrolytes. But then when it comes to, some of the higher efforts, I've gotten to a point now where just the particular nutrition I have in my bottles is enough to where I don't really take in solid food anymore. And so I try to stick to, I know they kind of say like the standard is around like 90 grams an hour. That's a lot. You have to really be getting busy out there. But for like zone 2, I try to stick to around 40 to 50 grams an hour. And then like, if I'm going to do like, say, an effort for an hour, I try to make sure at the very least I have like 90 grams in a bottle, and that's plenty.
Gotcha. Well, that's my goal for this year, because previously I never tracked these things. I go there, I ride 100 miles, and I do 2 booze, and then that's it. And I'm fine. I come home. But apparently, if I'm talking to like Mike and from Lanyon to Andrew, like I really just start to get these things a little bit caged in and zoned in, because I never did these things before.
Yeah.
So let's see if this year, because I'm hitting old man age now, so let's see if I can change a few things and really start calculating things down. How much carbs do I need? Do I recover better? Do I do this better? So I'm gonna head to that direction this year. So let's see what March, April brings when we get back outdoors. And see how it plays out. So I want to hit, like, because I always ask people like this, so what's like one of your most memorable biking experience that you've had so far, and how does that incorporate in like you becoming like a cyclist, and how you see that? Will you do more of those things, whatever that thing is?
Sure. So again, I'm going to use the middle child syndrome, where I'm a pro solitude guy. However, when the vibes are right, you can get me chitter chattering for 3 or 4 hours at a time, and I'm happy to listen to anyone's story. It doesn't even have to be cycling related. I'm my levels of like passion and energy feeds off of someone who is also passionate about anything. It could be whatever topic you want to talk. As long as there's some passion behind it, I'm genuinely interested in what you have to say, and that human connection is really important to me. And so one of my most memorable moments revolved around community aspects. So if you are a Zwift rider out there, there's a very popular ride that starts during the cooler months. It's basically at 7:10 a.m. Chicago time every Saturday. It's the BMTR ride. It's just a group ride. They're based out of like near Niagara Falls, out that way in New York. But they have several categories. They have A, B, C, and D, of course, depending on your fitness and your strength and things like that. But as far as all the group rides throughout the week, I would argue they probably have the biggest turnout. It's Saturday. They have fantastic leaders and sweepers, but these are people that actually get together in real life. They're not just virtual friends. And so this particular Zwift club, BMTR, they try to host an in-person or real life camp in different cities around the country. So it'll be 2 years this summer, but Omar and myself, they had the camp in Madison. And if you are from the Midwest, you understand how punchy, at least to us, how punchy of the climbs can be in Madison. And so Omar, myself, and a couple other folks, we went out to Madison, and we went for the ride for the day. And it was probably how many people? Like 100 people?
It was about 100. It was a lot.
100 people showed up for this ride. People who probably only knew each other from
virtual,
Zwift,
right?
which is, and incredible, and of all age groups and stuff. And so like you would see people where like you of course didn't recognize a face, but once you talk to them, you were like, oh, like I saw you suffering with
you're
me.
Meredith. You're Brian Kelly.
And let's be honest. I mean, they knew who I was. I mean,
Of
you know,
course.
like, I mean, we were coming in wearing the boom egg.
Yeah, he invited me, so that's why.
You know, only 2 of 4 black people there, so you have a you have a 1 in 4 chance to figure out who it is. And Omar and myself, we were able to like represent ourselves and help support the cause. And so, like, number one is the ride was really hard, but it was so much fun. Just beautiful roads in Madison. I understand why they have, some of like the triathlons there or Ironmans there. Parts of the route that we were on in that 100 miles is also part of I believe it's the Wisconsin State Championship race.
Yes,
as
and also
well.
part of the Ironman course. We also, I think,
Yeah,
and we went and I think there's a nuclearist ride that happens. I think that we also went in that one. That
yeah.
route too.
So so they were really smart on the route where it touched all these different areas. Like New Glarus is a very popular, punchy area. So just for the route, for perspective, if you don't live in the Midwest, it was 100 miles with about maybe 6,000 to 7,000 feet of elevation.
Yeah.
And for us, you can go 100 miles and probably get maybe 1,000 feet. So it was very, very punchy. But why that ride was so meaningful was because on that day, it wasn't really about, okay, who's going to win the group ride. It was a moment where you got to see how much all of us together impacted the community of cycling. Like people flew in from out of state for this ride. And, it was kind of an emotional feeling to know that these are people that you've been riding with for a couple of years virtually. Everyone, took time out of their busy weekends from their families to be together. And it really highlighted how important the community is. Like I get, we all want to train. Maybe we have some events and aid races that we have to do. And like, it's important, but the community aspect is what keeps all this going. If you're a race club and you're trying to recruit people, guess what? The community is going to be important. If you're trying to get on YouTube and tap dance some Chinese wheels and you want people to buy your product, you're going to have to be community. If you want to defeat trolls online trolling you in the comments, guess what? The community is what's going to save you to get past the trolling. So the community aspect is so important. You can have your personal goals, you can have your team goals, but just don't forget that the community is most likely what allowed you to get your comeuppance in cycling.
Comeuppance.
Hashtag comeuppance.
Hashtag comeuppance. I love that.
It's important.
No, you're 100% correct in that. Because as I said, I will say I'm going to do it, but I'm going to do it again. There's an old famous poem or song that says, "No man is an island. No man stands alone," right? Yeah. Unless you're Cayman Island, of course. If you're Cayman, but that's again.
Hey yo,
no pun intended. But we need each other, and I'm saying this is why Chicago is just like an amazing place for cycling. I mean, other cities too, but with all different groups, and again, you move from being an outsider, join a group, and you become like family. You guys sit for coffee. You guys go to barbecues. You guys go to the lake. You guys go to all these different things. Hang out. You get to now see you're going on people's boats and all sort of different. Maybe, but now you get to go on boats and then fake drive or whatever. But yeah, we need community, and we're going to keep on supporting you. And I wish you all great big things for this year and beyond. And let's keep on supporting Patrick, guys, and let's keep on encouraging him because he came from 100 subscribers to over 17,000, and he's going to keep on expanding because he's building up trust through community. And as I always said, this is how the world works. That people tend to bid on the horse that already won, and you're winning. So people are going to keep on bidding on you, and I'm going to bid on you for sure. And we should all do the same, okay, guys? Let's keep on supporting Patrick. Whatever you do, yes, some trolling is needed, a little bit, but it's lighthearted, guys. And I'm telling you, all the people, when I sometimes I read some comments, and I'm like, how did you come to that conclusion? Like, wow, but then, if you understand psychology or some things that goes on in people's mind, that has nothing to do with you. It's them. So keep it in mind. So we're going to keep on going, okay? It's all about the miles and smiles. So we've learned a lot about you, right? So again, your background is Belizean. Is Belizean? That's the correct word. So your background.
So Belize is a small country in Central America. It's basically, You have Mexico to the west, and just south of Belize is Honduras. So at one point in time, Belize was called British Honduras.
That's right.
Because they were, they were owned and colonized by the Brits, and so that's where my father's from. Fun fact: the village in Belize where my dad is from is the same village in town where Justin and Corey Williams of Legion of Los Angeles.
I was about to ask if you know those guys.
Yeah. So I asked my dad. I think just because they're just a tad younger than I am, so my dad, he couldn't pick out like who their like father, or family is down there, but from the same town, and so. 5-6 years ago, me coming into the sport, seeing at the time, this beacon of light of someone that I could identify with who's winning all these races, it's hard to be like, oh my goodness, like was I also meant to do cycling also? It's hard to not feel like, that, they carry themselves in, maybe different ways that I maybe wouldn't myself because, they're much more kind of LA Hollywood and I'm more of like blue collar Midwest. But just as far as just like the optics of just kind of what they represent, and for me coming from the same area, like it's really, really, really nice to see. And so particularly for my dad, so the way that Belize is kind of set up being that not so much that they were colonized, but it's a very multicultural country. So you have people who, look Black African because of just the slave trade from other Caribbean islands. You have people who, phenotype wise would look more Mexican or Hispanic. You also have some Creole in there as well. And so my dad, particularly, his subculture is what we call Garifuna, which basically kind of means Black Carib or like Black Caribbean person, because originally Belizean, his particular tribe, so to speak, they landed into, I believe it's St. Vincent originally.
That's way east.
Way east. And so what happened was, and my dad, which I can understand takes great pride in this, is basically his people or the slaves more or less kind of jumped off of the ship before they landed onto shores. So they were on their way, to be enslaved, but they were never actually enslaved necessarily because they never actually made it to the island on the slave ship. So there's like a big like a big kind of like almost like a hurricane or just like a sea storm where boats kind of got topsy-turvy. They were able to basically jump off of the ships, make it to shore, and they didn't really know where they were at. And they ended up landing in Belize. So what you'll see is pretty much when you see Belizeans who are more on the blacker look, more darker tone, from Africa, they usually are all along the coastal regions, like small fishing villages. And so there's only a handful of towns in Belize where you'll see the Garifuna. And they're also on the coastal towns of Honduras as well, because that's just where they landed off. And so every year on the 19th of November, they have what's called the 19th. It's a celebration where they basically reenact coming to shore.
Wow, that's pretty awesome.
Coming to shore, so they have their special garbs. My dad has his own Garifuna language. He's the last generation that speaks it. And it's a mix of some African dialect, a little bit of like Spanish as well, but it's really its own, like if you heard it, you wouldn't really know. It almost would sound maybe some sort of African language.
Is Upina one of those words?
Unfortunately, I didn't learn a lot of words growing up from my dad, so I couldn't even say it if that's true or not. But yeah, it's a very multicultural thing. And all this time now, I'm turning 43 this year. I always assumed that my dad came to this country because he made a deal with the military, and it was only like 15 years ago that I found out that he snuck into the country when he was a teenager. My dad's 80 years old, and so he's like, "Yeah, I spent a week traveling through Mexico, and I snuck in, and then he met my mom, and then
here you are.
Here I am. Yeah, so I could have been in Belize. Christ. Yeah."
Hey, well, we come here and we do our thing. Our Belizean background, born Jamaican, but I've been spending more than half my life in this country. We work really hard. I am a scientist. I run a lab. I hire people, and we're doing our things. As I always said, we're an country of immigrants, and I'm an immigrant. My kids is kind of same thing too, and that's pretty amazing that your dad did that, and here you are today. So, Pops, my respect to you. You say he's what is his tribe again?
Garifuna.
Garifuna.
And I'll say that I think I'm a lot more like my dad than my mom. I'm not like my mom at all, but my dad was very hard worker. He was a professional welder. for like 50 years before he retired. But he was a very hardworking guy, just head down, mind his business. He wasn't a man of many words, but respect was very important to him. And so I remember a couple years ago, we were on the phone talking, and he says to me, he's like, man, do my dad's accent. He has an accent. He's like, oh man, I see you online. I see you building these bikes. I see you using all these tools. You just make me so proud, because he was good with his hands. And my older brother, sorry, he's not good with his hands at all. So he's just like, man, I see you, like, man, you look just like me. And it's just like, I'm so proud of you, man. I feel like, man, he's always on that bike. He's always on that bike. And I'm just so happy for you. And like, even I'm happy to hear that.
Dude, anything come from pops, no matter what, I'm getting goosebumps. But anything that comes from pops, dude, or your parents, because you're proud of you, man, that's just the most amazing feeling you could ever experience, especially from your pops, man. Because when your pops give you a compliment, you have done something awesome.
It's legit.
Trust me, because dads, we don't really give stuff.
Yeah.
You fall on break two legs, get up. So man, that's a spirit, and that means you have a tight knit with your pops and stuff, and that's pretty. So none of your siblings ride bikes or anything like that.
No, like we rode bikes as a kid, but they're not anything like now. And I think just the hard work and ethic my dad have kind of plays into like cycling, and I'm sure why he came to Chicago, because just going back to the community aspect, Midwest, why, in my opinion, Midwest is so fantastic in the cycling scene is because even though we may not have the best roads versus like California or like Colorado or Asheville, I have people all the time from other areas tell me how they're jealous of our cycling culture. Even just like being at 7-Eleven, if you live in Chicagoland, is a big deal.
Yeah.
To go to a place where there's 50, 60 people. Most of these other cities, from what I've been told, people just kind of disperse to their own devices
you bike,
afterwards.
you go hard, then you go home and that's it.
And that's just the Midwest blue collar, hardworking culture that we have. It's you work your butt off during the day. Of course, you want to have a drink or beer with someone afterwards. And so that's like my dad's sort of mentality with this stuff. Just coincidentally also coincides with the Midwest culture, which also coincides to how we treat our very precious Chicago cycling scene.
Which also translate to you, and now you're passing it on.
Which translate to money in my pockets.
that is not he's not cheering. He's not cheering,
I'll
guys.
give you your 10 cents if you really want the 10 cents. I'll give you the $1.10.
I need my 10 cents. Internet is wild. It's a wild place.
Everybody want their money.
Give me my money. It's hard out here for a pimp. We try to make the money for the rent. Right. I did say this. Okay, never mind. I can help myself for these little things, but culturally we understand. Does your wife ride bikes?
She doesn't. I'm sorry. Let me correct that. She does have a bike that she rides, and she'll do a couple miles here and there, or maybe she'll go to one of the close by neighborhoods and get coffee. But I have not been able to convert her yet. And she's such a sharp lady that she probably wouldn't let herself do what I do, not just to spite me, but just to be like, I know I'll probably enjoy this, and I'll be like, I told you so. I would never say that. So she wants to have her own space and independence. And so, I told you so guy with my wife. Told you, don't do that. Yeah. So anything inspirational you want to leave us with? Like, what keeps you going? Oh, good question. So, obviously there are some financial implications that definitely helps. And I've started to see things kind of go my way the last couple of months. Just simply by, I wouldn't even say I've been focusing more, but just having things organically grow. And I've had to kind of treat this a little bit more corporately. And I'm very thankful that I have a corporate background, because now I can be in these conference calls and emails and be able to conduct myself professionally while still being myself. And so kind of one of the challenges I've been seeing recently is, so actually two challenges I'll say. So one challenge I've been seeing is not so much with the trolling, but I've just noticed this idea that other content creators are, I hate to say they're threatened by me, because that would be kind of pretty self-centered. But this idea that like there isn't room for all of us to create and be successful, and I don't want to make this a TED talk or sound like one of these motivational speakers is. But just all these spaces, they're not as small as you think. There's room for all of us to be great. There's all a niche that we all can do. We have to find out what it is. And cycling, it's a very competitive sport for no one really getting paid. So sometimes it's hard for me to understand why we're competing over things when we should be trying to work together to build each other up. So having to navigate dealing with these people where, because of how I carry myself, I'm basically, I'll say this, guys, if things are said about me, critical or not, it will probably get back to me, because I talk to a lot of people and they trust me. And they know, like, well, whatever's being said about you is probably inaccurate because we deal with you and we know you're not like that. So that's been kind of weird. The second challenge I've been seeing is, people who either want to make YouTube videos, or maybe they have their local race club or team and they're trying to either get sponsorship or, they're trying to get products, whatever that is. And I'm happy to help. Again, if everyone is successful, then it trickles down. Everybody wins. Yeah. It's that's a really hard mentality for people to understand. But who don't have that problem? The winners. And that, it sounds like a bro thing to say, but like, winners don't worry about, they're not threatened by stuff. And that's what gatekeepers do. Gatekeepers only gatekeep because they feel threatened that someone might actually be better than them, not understanding that, look, everyone can win. All of this success trickle down to everyone if everyone is doing their due diligence. So, if you are a local club or race team, whatever the case may be, and you're looking to get products, you have to kind of think about it from the brand's perspective. What particular value are you looking to bring? Just because you race, or just because, you might have, a particular demographic, making up of your club, that doesn't inherently bring value to anything. So, and I would even argue that even just winning a race doesn't necessarily bring value. So you have to ask yourself, are you willing to do maybe some things that are going to take some effort? Like, are you going to ramp up your social media? Are you going to actually take the time to speak to experts and lean on their expert advice on stuff to get the tools you need to be better at social media? Are you maybe going to have to sacrifice one ride a week to maybe dive deeper into the community? These are things that you have to look at. And like you said, with how many miles you do a year, people see the results, they don't see the work. So there's a lot of things that happen behind the closed doors that it's not difficult. But, if you are trying to reach out to these brands, you have to ask yourself, how consistent are you being? And are you really reaching out to the people who are where you're trying to get to?
Gotcha. Guys, you hear from the man himself, okay? And everything that he's saying, he's talking from his own experience and building up something over 5 years. That if you go to YouTube, again, you will see that what I'm saying is not anything I'm making up. So he knows what he's talking about. And he's been there. He's been to the boondocks. He's been to the mountaintop and back. You've seen it all. And he's definitely somebody who, I've definitely respect in Chicago, and somebody we've basically met and we click. And we click because we, like, literally like language, but
not just because we're black.
Not because we're black, but we have a lot of commonalities in that I think we're very positive people, and we want to see people succeed. I mean, he's here talking because I want him to succeed. He wants me to succeed. And that's how we help each other. And it's all about synergy. And this is what's going to make a difference later on. Everything in life happened for a reason. And that's what we're talking about, the whole idea of Chicago and community, and how we have many, many different groups. But if you go to Wednesday night ride, is everybody from all different groups come together? So you do a Monday night ride. Is everybody from everywhere? We all come and have a good time. But then the other time is just going to be this group and that group, but we all come together and make this thing work. So again, anything you want to say as we come to an end? Because I think we covered a lot. But anything you want to say? This is the time.
Sure. Yeah. I want to thank you for your show. You've done a lot of work. It's a very selfless thing to do, to bring people inside of your private dwellings, invest in all the equipment, and you've had some really great conversations with a lot of people from Chicago. And I know on the surface it can probably look like, okay, well, who are these individuals if you don't know who they are outside of Chicago? But that's what makes it so unique, is because You may have other people who are looking at people that we know who are looking at social media, YouTube, and thinking, okay, well, I only want to be a part of this if I can get some large return on investment. And they can easily fail to understand that, again, this is a community thing. This is not a what can I get out of this? How can I make money off of this? And this artist vibes and blessings, all the energy you're putting out there, the positive energy, it has shown itself to come back to you. And so, you being able to highlight and champion people that we see out on the road, plenty of people that I didn't even know you were even in contact with, is super cool to see. And it highlights just how locked in you are with the community. And I think there's a lesson for all of us to learn where, take the time to be out of your comfort zone and go ride with some people you haven't ridden before. You can want to go do, and I would say that because I'm just like, if you're so locked into your efforts, you probably are not going to do that. But it's not going to kill you to maybe make a list of maybe 3 to 5 new groups you can ride with in the summer. I know you guys can make time for it. And just show for an hour and a half and just hear people's stories. And you'll be surprised.
I think you can learn.
So much you can learn. And just, there's been things where, I've met people where I needed something or was looking for something and they were in a position to help me to do it.
Yeah, because back to community, that we have all these different peoples that we ride our bikes with, we ride our bikes and we go home. And that's it. Here, you can come and we can learn about you. Again, we have people who are doctors and lawyers and scientists and real estate. And this is one of the things I want to highlight. Hey, we can also network at the same time too, because that's how we build community. And this is one of the reasons why I do what I do. And again, you guys know I'm a people person. I love people. I please don't mind my dad jokes. This is who I am. I got kids, so I got to be locked in. I don't know what cap mean, what sigma means, skibbity. I know all those things, and this is one that gives me. I have to. Skibbity. I have to know these things, right? Anyway, I really love people, and I think what I'm trying to accomplish and achieve, again, is just to bring people together and let's build network. And we're gonna come, and this is exactly why Patrick had me come with the name Chicago Cycling Network. We did some troubleshooting, and that we came with a name together. I literally was like, okay, this is it, and this is what we're gonna do, and here I am over a year, almost a year now, and we're still here, still doing it. So guys, thank you so much for everybody who's been subscribing, helping spread the word, coming on, sharing your story. And we have an amazing lineup coming up this year, trust me.
This man has a big family. He rides 13,000 miles a year, more than I ride. And he's already done, how many people have you done?
That's a lot, maybe more than 50, 60 or so.
And he also, he's also is a professional in a hospital too. So I don't know how you make time for it. It's very inspiring.
It's important. Time management, very important. And at work, I've come to, over my years of training and work with different people, time management is important. And when I'm at work, the ball is never on my court. If I get something to do, back on your court, and that's why I build up efficiency. I have an efficient system that I build up, and people can never say, "Oh, Omar never do this," or "What I'm waiting." Nobody can say it. It's always the only thing. I'm like sitting. I'm like, okay. Playing that song, because that's what I do. And if I say I'm gonna do something, I'm gonna do it. No excuses, unless something come up and I can't do this. But if I give my word, as Al Pacino says, there's 2 things I have in this world that I don't break: my world and my balls. So that's from Scarface. If you do it, maybe too young for that. But anyway, guys, thank you so much for joining us. Keep the miles and smiles going.